So gold is sitting at $4,000+ as an all-time high, and Bitcoin's sitting around its own all-time high currently. Now, I know people are focused on the gold breakout, but I want to talk about something pretty specific. And not many people are asking it either. What happens when Bitcoin starts to claw back that market cap of gold, or maybe even in the long term, by the way, we flip it? Gold's market cap is roughly $25 to $27 trillion. And obviously the returns in Bitcoin versus that would be astronomical. But we need to talk about that shift. Is it possible? So yeah, we're going to look at some what ifs, some scenarios, probabilities for the short term, but it could change everything, especially if you're holding Bitcoin. If you're around here, please do leave a like, subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. And let me know in the comments, do you like gold? Do you hold Bitcoin? Or do you hold both of them? Gold. Why does it matter? Of course it matters. Now, this is a monumental run. We've had a period of like maybe 3-4 years, give or take, of kind of wishy-washy range behavior into a very violent breakout. This actually signals risk-off situations, and there is some added elements to why gold is doing well. You've got central banks, you've got obviously China buying certain things and stacking reserves around gold. You've got US treasuries. You've got tangible stores of value, all that kind of goody-woody-wood stuff. And obviously, we're also seeing Japanese buy gold in quite big numbers. However, some of this is technicals, some of this is fundamentals, and some of it's just obvious. Gold leads the safety trade, realistically, because we could talk about interest rates, the bond market, we talk about inflation, we talk about quantitative easing, quantitative tightening policy, what's going to happen next. And the thing is, right, Bitcoin is always the leverage beta play to gold, I think, anyway. That's my personal thoughts. For example, you can look at how Bitcoin has overperformed and outperformed gold for a long time, and I will showcase that in a second. However, my whole premise around this entire video idea is, what if Bitcoin just starts to catch up? Because the returns over the course of the year for gold has been unbelievable versus Bitcoin. For the first time ever, we've seen gold outperform it. That could change. So on the screen, right, even though I just said it outperformed it, not by much, let's be honest, but there has been periods where gold has really outperformed everything over the course of the last year. Give or take, right? And we want to talk about the maths. We want to talk about all the situations around why this is important, and we'll look at the technicals, and we'll also look at why Bitcoin dominance could go also a bit higher. Now, as you can see here, if you put $100 in every single week over a year ago, these are your values. Obviously, portfolio change is massive. We are parabolic right now, right? And as you can see here, over the course of that orange line, there's been a lot of time over the course of this year where gold has massively outperformed. But Bitcoin does catch up. The situation is, are we going to catch up? But let's talk about some of the maths here. Because when we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about gold, we talk about other top value assets, and we're currently there, 2.4 trillion in terms of Bitcoin. Now, as you can see there, gold is a little bit higher, quite a lot higher, actually. And you've got to think Bitcoin has to do a 10x to catch up with that valuation feat. That's huge, right? So we're talking just under 10% of gold's value is Bitcoin currently with the current circulating supply. Now, for parity and for the obvious sake in the room, we're looking at 11.23x if we are going to get anywhere near gold's market cap. And that is a ridiculous feat. And I don't think that's going to happen this cycle. So keep your pants on. But we've got to think of the bigger picture here. We've got to think of where things can go long term and the whole element around it. And we'll talk about the narrative shift longer term. But the reality is this is the price is what it could be if we flip it. But even if we capture half of that, or even go up another 2 or 3 X's, you're looking at Bitcoin going into some silly numbers short term, and it still be quite far away from the likes of gold, for example. So that could be huge. And the whole premise is, and my overall viewpoint is, gold is absolutely flying. But as I've alluded to on my X post, Bitcoin has to catch up and do something now. This is a weekly time frame. If we look at the daily time frame, you're going to see it a lot more turbo. Bitcoin needs to do a move like this, a clear breakout, a clear all sky, go for it move, which could change everything in terms of behavior of this entire market in the short term. But also, In my Patreon, there's a link below. I talked specifically yesterday about what if the liquidity from gold, for example, moves over and we get a correction on gold and it goes into Bitcoin. That could just drive it completely. And that could be the catalyst that sends things a bit higher and change the entire scope of it, certainly in the next couple of months. But let's talk about the narrative. The narrative, right? Gold leads, usually Bitcoin responds, right? Gold is a defensive store of value. That's it, simple, right? Now, Bitcoin is an evolution of that. It's obvious. It's digital. You can verify it much easier. It's also borderless, and you can literally put it in your pocket or anywhere remotely, essentially, right? Whereas with gold, you've got to shift a lot of it. As gold outperforms bonds, institutions begin to reevaluate their portfolio. If they're buying for safety, why not buy for growth or scarcity? And that's what, realistically, when we talk about, the world of the ETFs and stuff, which, bear with me, we talk about the Ethereum ETF. It's been slow, but it's starting to pick up. When we talk about the likes of the Bitcoin ETF and essentially that market flow, and you could argue a percentage of retail boomers buying this, they're kind of looking at that, and you can see overall people are buying it. That's important. And the ETFs, in my opinion, have opened the door. As I say, daily inflows, absorbing the supply. Bitcoin structure is designed for scarcity, and that will eventually, as I say, catch up. But the stronger gold looks, the cheaper Bitcoin seems to appear, in my viewpoint. Now, one narrative that we could get on board with, kind of, and I don't believe this is going to happen anytime soon. I don't think we're going to see a stupid amount of Bitcoin dominance flow up to like 70, 80%, which I know could happen if the scenario of Bitcoin goes parabolic to 200, 300K and altcoins don't keep up. That's a possibility, obviously, right? But Ben has said, about liquidity shall flow back to the king. And I agree, because it is the king, right? If you're not holding Bitcoin, I don't know what you're doing, realistically, right? And that's the situation. If Bitcoin does surge and just take off, right? And Bitcoin has this kind of habit of just doing whatever it wants. It's like a child. I've said this before. It just goes, well, I'll do this. Off we go. And that could be very, very important. And obviously, if Ethereum isn't really pulling its weight and doing a correction, if Solana and all the other stuff are cooled off a little bit, which it has, it could be a very, very interesting problem and a big problem for altcoins in the short term. Because each time Bitcoin becomes a bit of a macro hedge, the narrative becomes the dominant surges. Simple as that, and your altcoins just get worse and worse. And as I say, if Bitcoin starts chasing, the keyword is chasing here, the gold valuation and goes up a little bit, you're going to probably see a 65% Bitcoin dominance pretty quickly. Because when we do get that blue sky breakout on Bitcoin and it just flies off and we do follow that gold kind of rush, you're going to start noticing the behavior change, certainly with Bitcoin. Now, will that, as another narrative, bring altcoins back? And I've always said, and I said it in my recent video, and feel free to watch it, Ethereum holds the keys for the altcoins. But gold might hold the key for Bitcoin, realistically, here, and everything else around it in terms of why gold is pumping. When will Bitcoin follow? It probably will. It's just a matter of when. But personally, for me, these are my targets and potentially higher. I do not think we're going to flip gold anytime soon. We'll be probably a lot older, and I'll probably have grey beards and all that kind of good stuff when that happens. My plan is still to play the game with Bitcoin, to buy as low as I can, which I have, and to sell profits. I still think we are a highly speculative asset. I still think we've got a lot to prove. But the gold narrative is important to note. Gold is providing the store of value that still matters, and it's been there for a while. Bitcoin does it, but it's not proven enough yet, right? That's the situation we find ourselves in. And yeah, you could argue when dominance peaks, we may say a rotation into leading altcoins, not everything, but that could well be, very, very short and sweet. Bitcoin still could be the main play. And yes, as I say, we have that situation where gold leads, Bitcoin follows, and then maybe altcoins follow, whether that becomes true or not. But my viewpoint is simple. We are still speculative. We will still see corrections. We still probably will see gold correct as well. Gold is still quite a speculative asset in a way where it follows the liquidity in certain vibes. You will probably see a pretty meaty correction on gold because that's what happens. If you look at the gold charts, right? I'm not saying this is going to happen anytime soon. Probably will happen though. We do get some honking corrections where it does drop quite a lot. Just saying, big massive expansions, big horrible corrections. Bitcoin does that every cycle, realistically, right? And yes, we could go gobble, gobble, gobble. I want to buy the cheapest Bitcoin ever. That could actually happen in the next couple of months or into the next year or into the next 2 years, for example, right? So let me know if I've convinced you in any way, shape or form that you should be looking at Bitcoin longer term. Gold is at record highs and Bitcoin, I could argue, potentially warming up for that final big squirt to the upside. And yeah, we're at $2.4 trillion and obviously gold's ridiculously high, but can we catch up to a little bit of that? Can we bridge that gap a little bit? I think we can. It's just a matter of time, in my viewpoint. But hey, let me know what you think and subscribe if you're new. Like the video if you obviously enjoyed it. But yeah, links below if you want any extra content and all that kind of good stuff.